All right, this is the third segment of this tape, and June 10th, and we're finishing up with Mr. Edward J. Gordon, a 82 and 3/4-year-old thriving great-grandpa. Okay, how would you describe your spouse? What do you admire the most about her?
Oh, jeepers, you want me to leave?
Her age.
You mean that I was able to survive living with you?
Well, we go well together, I think. She's always been a goer and doer. We get together very well. What else? After 58 and a half years, there's not much you have to say about it.
Okay. How did you find out you're going to be a parent for the first time?
Threw up. Oh. I never did. I told you I never lost a meal.
Oh, I don't remember. I have no clue.
You do not remember, huh?
Not at all.
It was just something that he had never doubted and just didn't anticipate.
Yeah, I have no idea.
It was just a fact of life, I think, with him.
What were some of your prouder moments as being a parent?
Well, getting it all through college I feel proud about that.
That's good.
One way or the other, I still don't know how we did it. And we never had any real problems with you kids getting in trouble. I'm proud of that.
What do you think happened in the world that had the most impact on your life?
Oh, World War II.
Yeah.
World War II just about did everything. It just, I can't imagine what life would be like now without World War II. I mean, all the discoveries and all the baby boomers and the way of life was just upside down. It was a whole new way of life. You had to work out the jet airplane. That was big to me because I was involved. Very big to me. I found out I didn't know anything at the age of 36. I thought I had to learn something because the whole new world was opening up. And the jet airplane was it in my life. But big thing is World War II.
Very good. Who was the oldest relative you can remember as a child?
I remember my grandfather. I never talked to him. I think I was about 3 or 4 years old when I saw him last, and I avoided him. He had had a stroke that I didn't know about, and I remember always seeing him on the front porch of his house when we went down there, and I would manage to I'd keep 10 yards away from him. I'd walk around him. I was afraid of him. I didn't know what was the matter with him. He had a cane and he sat in a rocking chair. And
now, what was this grandfather's name?
George
Sotak.
Yeah, I forgot that before.
And George Sotak, that's where Uncle George was named.
I don't know if that was beyond me.
George Sotak was how old when you were 3, do you think?
Well, he was about 10 or 11.
Now,
You mean my grandfather? Well, to me, he seemed like 75, which for a 4-year-old, but ancient. But I don't know, he might have been.
And that was probably in 1926 or 27.
Yeah.
So he was probably born in about 1850.
Yeah.
Now, have you always been Catholic?
Yeah.
And that's because both of your parents were Catholic?
Well, my mother was Catholic. My grandmother on her side was Catholic. I didn't know my father's grandparents, my father's parents. I didn't know anything about them, or never saw them, never heard of them.
I see.
My mother's parents were Catholic. I never saw my grandfather in church because the only thing I can see him in is a rocker on the front porch. So.
Did you ever consider leaving the Catholic religion?
No, not really.
Was it a problem when Mom got married because she wasn't Catholic?
No, we worked it out, and she went her way, and she finally she went to church with me, and I went to church with her a few times. But
to what was her church?
Congregational in Flushing. When we were in Flushing, we went to their church a few times, but that never worked out. And she eventually went with me, and it was her choice.
Do you think that you've become closer to your religion over your years, or about the same as you've always been?
I question it a lot more than I used to. That about solved it.
Do you think that there's a heaven?
I used to.
You don't now?
I don't know what there is, and it's getting to be too big for me. I really can't understand it. There's a lot of questions that have come up in me about religion that I never had before. Okay, maybe I got more time on my hand, I don't know.
Questions like?
Well, like I asked you about, why didn't Christ write something? Why did St. Peter have to write to the Romans and us read about it? Why are the Gospels always about one of the apostles? Why didn't we have some direct writing? If God can do everything, why is there so much hell in ours? I understand. I know there's good and evil, but I didn't know that evil was so damn powerful.
Interesting way to say it.
I don't know. People get killed, like in 9/11, they run into that building and they're cremated on the spot. And you start wondering about what happens after death. And is there a heaven? I know people say they talk to God, but I never felt like I ever talked to God. I might pray and this and that, but they seem to get answers and I don't.
Maybe you're not listening.
Well, they say there's a lot of old jokes about you don't make the choice that God, you don't take the choice that God gives you. Well, how do you know that?
What do you mean you don't take? I don't get that.
Well, the old joke about the guy was there's going to be a flood, and they warned him, and he didn't go. Then the flood water come up to the door, and they come in a rowboat, and he wouldn't go. And then he was up on the roof, and they come in a helicopter, and he wouldn't go. And then he got washed away, and he complained that why should he die so young? Well, he had 3 chances to get out of it, and he didn't take them. God said he sent help 3 times.
What do you think of today's values and discipline versus when you were in your 20s or 30s?
Well, I think today everything's...
Mrs. G, you're right in the middle of this. I've been trying to do this all day. I can hear your voice on the tape. Go ahead.
I think everything is for the big buck. I'm disappointed in the politicians. Everything is the dollar. You got the dollar and you can do it.
Now, for you, you worked at American for how many years?
Well, 40. I was in the service for 43 years, which they give me credit for, which doesn't matter, but I worked there over 40 years.
And you retired there.
Yeah.
And you're still living on their pension, right?
Right.
And do you remember the retirement ceremony, or do you remember, are you glad that you retired? Were you ready to retire? Looking back on it?
I wasn't quite ready to retire, but I knew that if I stayed there, I would have been stuck on a night shift, and I didn't want to go through that.
So you took the retirement?
So I took the retirement.
Did they give you a plaque? What was the story about the plaque? Didn't they spell your name wrong?
That was, yeah, what was it? 40 years of service, and they spelled my name wrong.
And you made one mistake. You
I
gave the
it
plaque back.
I gave it back.
Very good. So now that you've been in retirement since, what year did you first go to retirement?
December of 84. December of 84.
December, so you've been retired for 22 years.
21, 22.
Were you surprised that you've gone 22 years beyond your...
I'm more than surprised.
Really? Why?
Well, 20 years is a long time, and I never thought I'd get past the age of 70, so.
Just because, why?
Well, 70 was awful old for that long time.
Ah. So what have you enjoyed the most in your retirement? What did retirement give you that you liked the most?
Well, the freedom to do what I wanted to do. Play golf. I always felt I got gypped on sports. I never had a chance in high school or any time to play sports. And I sort of kind of made it back up in my retirement.
And so, now you haven't played now in 7 months. You're, I guess, all geared up to get back up there and play, huh?
Right.
In talking about playing golf over the last 22 years, when did you take up golf?
Oh, when I lived in New York, that would have been in the 50s. If I played, say 10 times 90 holes a year, that was a lot.
Where would you play in New York?
Well, they had some public courses. You had to wait to get on. It was very inexpensive, but you had to wait.
I see.
And
so then you went to Wisconsin, and in your retirement, you really took up the game seriously, right?
right. Well, that's where I started playing. I mean, I used to play before I retired, we used to play 9 holes a week. And maybe once in a while we'd play 18 holes on a weekend or something. But that was only for 4 or 5 months.
Have you ever shot your age?
No.
How close have you come?
Well, last year I was 81, I had an 84.
Ooh.
But,
maybe this is the year.
no.
This
I don't know.
August,
I think I'm getting worse.
83, and you shoot an 83.
Could happen.
It could happen.
The only way it happens is when the foots fall. That's why I shot an 84.
What was the biggest tournament you've won in the last 22 years?
Well, they have the Dairyland Open, which comes in 5 flights, and with my 84 and my handicap, I was the lowest. I had the lowest score of all 5 flights.
Wow. What year was this?
Last year.
Last year. So officially, you really do sandbag on your handicap? No.
No, I don't.
He calls it handicap management. Do you remember your best shot?
Yeah, very well.
What's that?
Well, that one I described to you today, a par 5 in a sand trap in 3, and I couldn't see the hole, and I sank the
Yeah,
shot.
but for what? What were you playing for? Was it a tournament?
It was in Las Vegas for the biggest tournament of the year, and I won like $700 or $800 on it. So.
How, takes me to one other question, I'm almost done here. How did you get along with your wife's relatives now that you moved out to Chicago and now you're away from New York?
We got along. I didn't get along with our brother Jack, but that was understandable. He had a problem. And the rest of them we got along with. So,
Do you go back the farthest with which relative? Which one of her brothers and sisters?
well, Evelyn.
Evelyn and Dan?
Evelyn, yeah.
Where did you first meet them?
Well, Dan was going with Ev when I was going with Dot in 46, 47, 48. We used to go out on double dates.
And so that's where you met Uncle Dan, but they lived in Chicago, and he was into business, and he wanted you to go into business, right?
Yeah, well, his parents had a currency exchange business, and he was running those, and he wanted me to come out there and go into business with him, which after I came out to Chicago, I got a promotion with American Airlines, and the business that he was in was not exactly what I wanted to go into, and I, at that time, I would have rather stayed with American or what I had than go into a business, and I didn't know what I was getting into.
And how many kids did you have at that time? Three?
Three.
That you were raising?
Three, yeah.
Now, during those times, did you have struggled to make ends meet?
All the time. I used to work in a currency exchange on weekends and nights, Friday nights, for what, so put in, 9 to 7 on Saturday for $20. And, well, actually I was getting paid about $2 an hour.
What year was that? What years was
That was the 60s, early 60s.
And $2 an hour then would be about how much an hour now? How much did gas cost in the early 60s?
I don't know. It's hard to remember that.
10 cents a gallon?
No. Okay, I'd say maybe about 3 gallons for $1, something like that.
Then when did you first get introduced to Wisconsin?
Well, Dan's parents had a farm up there, and we used to go on vacation. When we lived in Chicago, we'd go up there and spend a week up there with him and his parents and Ev, and then Dot's parents used to rent a cabin up on Kelly Lake, and we would spend a week up there in the summertime on vacation. And all the kids were up there.
That's good. What's the one thing that you want most people to remember about you?
That I tried hard. No, I thought, just remember me, that's all.
And the thing that I'll always remember is you saying to me, just call me once a week. All right. What accomplishments are you the most proud of?
I'm proud of my record with American. In fact, this past year we went to one of the retirees meetings, and one of the guys there was, he was a superintendent, which is one of the grades I attained for a mechanic, and this guy was a crew chief when I come back from the war in New York, and I was just a little old mechanic, and we were sitting at the table there at this retirement deal and talking, and he's looking at me and he's shaking his head, and he says, I can't believe it. He says, you were the best troubleshooter in the business. He says, you little old shit used to run around there, the LaGuardia there, and here you come out and you really were a good troubleshooter. And I almost cried. Because although I was the same rate as he was, a superintendent of maintenance, he would have had 6 or 8 years of seniority on me. And I always felt like he was my boss. So I thought that was a pretty high compliment.
Okay, well, Dad, it was very good interviewing you.
Okay.
And
Well, your mother's tired right
yeah, I know. I'll get her next. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's my